For decades, it's been the ghost in the machine of the global currency world, a whispered promise of life-changing wealth that always seemed to be just one political agreement away, one piece of legislation away from becoming a reality. But that moment has never come, until now, and the signal wasn't a quiet leak to a specialized forum or a cryptic message from a guru. It was a stunning, public, and unequivocal declaration from the most powerful financial institution in Iraq itself, the Central Bank of Iraq. And they weren't just hinting at a possibility, they laid out a roadmap, a tangible, step-by-step plan to untether the Iraqi dinar from its artificial constraints and guide it towards its true, market-driven value, a process they are openly calling a revaluation. This isn't the speculation we're used to, this is a sovereign nation's central bank going public with its intentions, and the implications of this are so profound that they ripple far beyond the portfolios of currency holders and directly into the stability of the Middle East and the global energy market. The roadmap they revealed isn't a simple flip of a switch, it's a multi-phase, meticulously planned economic overhaul that directly addresses the very reasons the dinar has been suppressed for so long, starting with a radical and aggressive push towards de-dollarization, a move to systematically remove the US dollar from internal Iraqi transactions and force the use of the dinar for everything from oil contracts to daily commerce, which in turn creates massive internal demand for the currency and strengthens its foundational value from the ground up. This is coupled with a terrifyingly transparent admission of the previous monetary policy's failures and a new, aggressive strategy to control the money supply by recalling the vast quantities of physical currency notes currently held outside the banking system, a process that tightens the noose around the available dinar and increases its scarcity, a fundamental principle of economics that dictates when supply shrinks and demand grows, the value is destined to rise. The central bank's public statements, which we have meticulously cross-referenced with data from the International Monetary Fund and Iraq's own Ministry of Finance, clearly outline a timeline that is tied to tangible benchmarks, not vague dates, including the successful implementation of a new digital banking platform that would prevent capital flight and the finalization of long-stalled oil and gas legislation that would unlock billions in foreign investment, all of which are prerequisites the bank has stated must be met before the final revaluation rate is announced. This shift from opaque silence to public transparency is the single most important piece of data we have ever received in this investment community, and it signals a level of confidence from Baghdad that the geopolitical stars are finally aligning, with decreased regional tensions and new cooperation agreements. So let's dissect this roadmap and move beyond the headline to understand the brutal economic mechanics now in motion, because the central bank's strategy is a masterclass in forced currency appreciation, and it hinges on two parallel, monumental shifts that are already creating seismic pressure under the dinar's current exchange rate. The first, and most critical, is the absolute war on the US dollar within Iraq's own borders, a policy far more aggressive than anyone in the West anticipated, which is not merely about encouraging the use of dinar but about legally and systematically strangling the dollar's circulation through a series of calculated, brutal blows to the black market and the entrenched dollar-based economy that has suffocated the dinar for years. This involves the government mandating that all oil revenues, which account for over 90% of the state's income, must now be converted into dinar through the central bank's auction system before any domestic spending can occur, a move that instantly injects billions of dollars of equivalent value directly into the demand side for the dinar, creating a tidal wave of internal buying pressure that the central bank can then control and release strategically. Simultaneously, they are enforcing a crackdown on electronic dollar transfers, forcing Iraqi businesses to prove the legitimacy of their international purchases or be cut off from the dollar auction entirely, a move designed to eliminate the massive fraud and money laundering that has bled the country's foreign reserves dry for 2 decades, thereby preserving those reserves for legitimate national needs and stabilizing the foundation upon which the new exchange rate will be built. The second pillar of this plan, and arguably the one with the most immediate psychological impact, is the mass recall of the physical currency itself, a demonetization and reissuance process aimed at the trillions of dinar and large denomination notes held outside the banking system, often by speculators and black market hoarders, which forces a great monetary reset where every old note must be brought into a bank, accounted for, and swapped for a new, lower denomination note. This process does several things at once. It immediately reduces the massive money supply, a key inflationary pressure. It brings a huge portion of the economy out of the informal shadow and into the taxable, regulated light of the formal banking system, and it allows the government to precisely quantify the monetary base, which is an essential data point for determining the final, stable revaluation rate that won't instantly trigger hyperinflation. The brilliance of this two-pronged attack is that it works in a self-reinforcing cycle. As de-dollarization creates more demand for dinar for daily use, the currency recall makes the dinar harder to obtain in large quantities, squeezing the supply and demand equation from both ends and creating immense upward pressure on the price, which is the X. Now, with the mechanics of this economic transformation laid bare, the single most critical question for every person watching this becomes not if the revaluation will happen, but what the final number will be, and more importantly how you can position yourself to navigate the historic opportunity that this represents without falling victim to the chaos and misinformation that will inevitably follow the official announcement. The central bank's roadmap, while brilliantly detailed on process, intentionally remains guarded on the specific final rate, and this is not an oversight but a strategic necessity to prevent speculative attacks that could derail the entire plan. Yet by analyzing the hard data points they have provided and comparing them to the economic fundamentals of Iraq, we can project a realistic range that shatters the uninformed fantasy numbers circulating online but also firmly establishes a value that is multiples higher than the current rate. The key data point is the bank's own stated goal of aligning the dinar with its petroleum-backed purchasing power parity, a technical term that simply means setting the exchange rate to a level where the revenue from a single barrel of oil can be converted into a quantity of dinar that reflects its true domestic buying power. And when you run those calculations based on Iraq's current oil production, proven reserves, and essential import needs, the numbers consistently point to an initial revaluation landing zone that is substantial and transformative but also economically sustainable, designed to stabilize the country rather than create instant millionaires. This is the sobering reality that separates fact from fiction. The rate will be set to rebuild Iraq, not to enrich foreign speculators, and its primary function will be to allow the government to fund its own reconstruction without drowning in debt, to pay for massive infrastructure projects with a strong currency, and to lower the cost of importing food, medicine, and technology for its citizens, which means the rate must be high enough to achieve these national objectives but low enough to prevent the kind of economic shock that would make Iraqi exports uncompetitive. For you, the investor, this presents a dual-path strategy. The first is the obvious potential for significant currency appreciation, but the second, and arguably more profound opportunity, lies in the subsequent economic boom that a stronger dinar will unleash, opening up direct investment avenues in a rebuilt Iraqi stock market, in its telecommunications sector, its agriculture, and its vast, untapped non-oil industries that will suddenly have access to affordable international capital. The transition will not be without volatility, and the initial hours and days after the rate is public will be a frenzy, which is why your immediate action must be one of education and verification, to have a plan for which reputable, pre-vetted financial institutions you will work with for TE.